The water is 36 degrees. At this temperature, the human body shuts down in 5 minutes. The heart slows, the lungs seize, the brain screams for heat that will never come. In the North Atlantic, in the winter of 1940, 5 minutes is a long time to die. Thomas O'Leary is 22 years old. He is from Liverpool. He is a merchant seaman on a ship called the SS San Demetrio. She is a tanker. She carries aviation gasoline for the Royal Air Force. Without that gasoline, the Spitfires do not fly. Without the Spitfires, the German bombers own the sky over London. Thomas O'Leary knows this. He does not think about it. He thinks about the cold. He thinks about the dark. He thinks about the fact that somewhere out there, in the black water, a German submarine is watching him through a periscope. It is 3 a.m. The convoy is scattered. The escort vessels, the destroyers, they are somewhere over the horizon, chasing ghosts. The U-boats have learned to wait. They wait for the gap. They wait for the moment when the merchant ships are alone. Then they surface. They are faster on the surface than the fat tankers. They run in on the dark side of the moon. They pick a target. They fire. Thomas O'Leary does not hear the torpedo. He hears the explosion. It is a sound that has no beginning. It is just there. A wall of noise that punches him in the chest and lifts him off his feet. The San Demetrio breaks in half. The aviation gasoline ignites. The sky turns white. For 1 second, the entire ocean is lit up like a football stadium. Thomas O'Leary sees the faces of the men on the deck next to him. He sees their mouths open in screams he cannot hear. Then he is in the water. The cold hits him like a baseball bat. It is not gradual. It is not a shock that fades. It is a solid thing that wraps around his chest and squeezes. His legs stop working immediately. His arms stop working. He cannot swim. He cannot breathe. He can only float and watch the fire on the water. The fire is warm. The fire is 50 yards away. He tries to swim toward it. His arms do not move. He hears the cries. They come from all around him. Men calling for their mothers. Men calling for God. Men calling for anyone. The cries are short. One by one, they stop. The silence between them gets longer. Then there is only the sloshing of the water and the crackling of the burning fuel. Thomas O'Leary stops feeling his body. He stops feeling the cold. He feels tired. He feels like closing his eyes. He thinks about Liverpool. He thinks about his mother, who will not know what happened to him. They will send a telegram. It will say, "Missing at sea." It will not say that he watched his friends die and then fell asleep in the ice. A hand grabs his collar. It is a strong hand. It is attached to an arm that is pulling him. He is dragged through the water. He is dumped onto something hard. A lifeboat. He is in a lifeboat. Men are rowing. Men are crying. Men are praying. He does not know how he got there. He does not know who pulled him out. He lies in the bottom of the boat, in the freezing water that has collected there, and he shakes. He shakes so hard his teeth crack against each other. He shakes for an hour. He shakes until the sun comes up. When the sun comes up, they count the survivors. 26 men started on the San Demetrio. 12 are in the lifeboat. The others are in the water. They are still there, floating in their life jackets, their faces turned to the sky. The men in the lifeboat do not look at them. They look at the horizon. They look for a ship. There is no ship. There is only water. This is October 1940. This is the Battle of the Atlantic. This is how Great Britain dies. In London, 400 miles away, Winston Churchill stares at a map on a wall. The map is covered in pins, black pins. Each black pin is a ship. Each black pin is Thomas O'Leary. Each black pin is 12 men in a lifeboat. The pins are everywhere. They cluster in the shipping lanes like a rash. They spread from Canada to Ireland. They choke the approaches to Liverpool and Glasgow. The numbers on the bottom of the map are updated every morning. They are not good. Churchill knows the math. Britain needs 30 million tons of imported goods a year to survive. To fight a war, it needs more. To feed the people, to fuel the factories, to arm the soldiers, the ships must come. In September, they lost 50 ships. In October, they will lose 63. The U-boats are building faster than the shipyards can replace them. The German Admiral Karl Dönitz has figured it out. He does not need to sink warships. He needs to sink freighters. He needs to sink tankers. He needs to cut the rope. The room under Westminster is small. It is cramped. It smells of sweat and stale tea and fear. The walls are concrete. The ceiling is low. This is the Cabinet War Room. This is where the Empire hides while the bombs fall. Churchill stands in his three-piece suit, a cigar in his hand, his eyes on the pins. He does not move for a long time. The men around him wait. They know better than to speak. Churchill turns to his chief of staff. He speaks quietly. He does not shout. He never shouts. He says, "If we lose the Atlantic, we lose the war. It is as simple as that." The chief of staff nods. He has heard this before. He knows what comes next. Churchill walks to a different map. This map shows Europe. It shows a black stain spreading from Norway to the Spanish border. It shows the Nazi Empire. It shows France, crushed. It shows the Low Countries, occupied. It shows the Channel ports, bristling with guns and barges. The invasion barges are waiting. They are waiting for the signal. They are waiting for the Royal Navy to starve. They are waiting for the rope to snap. "The Germans think we are finished," Churchill says. "They think we will sue for peace by spring. They think the bombing will break us. They think the U-boats will starve us." They are wrong, but they are not wrong about the numbers. The numbers are a monster. The British Treasury is bankrupt. Not nearly bankrupt. Completely bankrupt. The war costs £11 million a day. The gold reserves are gone. The overseas investments are sold. The factories in America, the railroads in Argentina, the stocks in Canada, all of it, liquidated, spent, gone. To buy weapons from the United States, the law demands cash. Cash and carry. Pay in gold. Take delivery in your own ships. But there is no gold, and the ships are at the bottom of the ocean. Churchill has written letters. Long letters. Desperate letters. He has written to Franklin Roosevelt, the President of the United States. He has explained the math. He has explained the pins on the map. He has explained that if Britain falls, the German Navy will have the British fleet. The German Army will have the British ports. The German Air Force will have the British airfields. And then, across the Atlantic, the United States will be alone. The moat will be empty. The wolves will swim. Roosevelt has written back. He writes kind letters. He writes encouraging letters. He writes letters full of sympathy and good wishes. But sympathy does not stop torpedoes. Good wishes do not feed children. Roosevelt is trapped. He is trapped by the law. He is trapped by the Congress. He is trapped by the American people. In Washington, the American people are having a debate. It is a loud debate. It is a vicious debate. It happens in the newspapers, on the radio, in the bars, on the street corners. The question is simple. Should America help Britain? The answer is not simple. Charles Lindbergh stands in front of a crowd in Des Moines, Iowa. The crowd is huge, 20,000 people. They have come to hear the most famous man in America, the first man to fly across the Atlantic alone. Lindbergh is tall. He is handsome. He speaks calmly. He tells them that the war in Europe is not their war. He tells them that the British are finished. He tells them that the Nazi Air Force, the Luftwaffe, is invincible. He tells them that no amount of American aid can save a corpse. He tells them that the only way to keep America safe is to build a fortress so strong that no one will dare attack it. The crowd roars. They love him. They believe him. In the White House, Roosevelt listens to Lindbergh on the radio. He leans back in his chair. He puffs on his cigarette. He knows Lindbergh is wrong. He knows the Nazi machine is not invincible. But he also knows that Lindbergh speaks for millions. He knows that the America First Committee has money and power and influence. He knows that if he moves too fast, if he pushes too hard, the Congress will block him. He has to be patient. He has to be clever. He has to find a way to sell a war to a people who do not want to fight. He finds the words in a press conference. It is December 17th, 1940. The reporters are crowded into his office. They are tired. They have been covering the war for months. They have heard all the arguments. Roosevelt leans forward. He takes the cigarette holder out of his mouth. He smiles. He says, "Imagine my neighbor's house is on fire. If he comes to me and asks to borrow my garden hose, what do? Do I say, 'Neighbor, this hose cost me $15. You must pay me $15 before you can use it'? Of course not. I do not want $15. I want my hose back after the fire is out. So I lend him the hose. He puts out the fire. He gives me back my hose. We are both happy." The reporters scribble in their notebooks. Garden hose, fire, lend. It is simple, it is brilliant, it is the hook. Roosevelt calls it Lend-Lease. It is not a loan of money, it is a loan of equipment. It is a loan of tanks and planes and ships and guns. It is a loan of food and fuel and medicine. It is a loan of the garden hose. And if the hose gets burned up in the fire, well, that is just too bad. The neighbor does not have to pay for it. He just has to be grateful. The isolationists in Congress go crazy. They call it a dictatorship. They call it a war measure. They call it the end of American neutrality. They fight it for 3 months. They filibuster. They delay. They scream. But Roosevelt has the hose, and he has the logic, and he has the radio. On December 29th, 1940, he sits down at a microphone in the White House. It is a fireside chat. Millions of Americans gather around their radios. They hear his voice, calm and steady and familiar. He tells them that the Nazi masters have made it clear that they intend to enslave the whole of Europe. He tells them that if Britain falls, the Axis powers will control the continents of Europe, Asia, Africa, and the seas. He tells them that they will be living in a world where the guns are pointed at the Western Hemisphere. He tells them that the best defense of the United States is the success of Great Britain in defending itself. And he tells them that they must become the great arsenal of democracy. The phrase sticks. Arsenal of democracy. It is not about sending American boys to die in foreign fields. It is about sending American steel. It is about sending American factories. It is about turning the industrial might of a sleeping giant into a wall of fire that the wolves cannot cross. On March 11th, 1941, the Lend-Lease Act becomes law. Roosevelt signs it with a dozen pens and hands them out to the men who made it happen. He asks for $7 billion to start the engine. $7 billion. It is the largest single appropriation in American history. The hose is out of the garage. The arsenal is open for business. In London, the news arrives in the middle of the night. Churchill is in his bath. An aide knocks on the door and hands him a telegram. Churchill reads it. He gets out of the bath. He walks naked into the next room, where his private secretary is working. The secretary looks up. Churchill is dripping water on the carpet. He is grinning. He says, "This is our deliverance." He later calls it the most unsordid act in the history of any nation. But deliverance is a long way off. The law is signed. The money is appropriated. The factories are gearing up. But the road to Britain is still a killing zone. The first shipments are pathetic. They are leftovers. They are rifles from the First World War, packed in grease, stored in warehouses for 20 years. They are old biplanes that no Air Force would use. They are trucks that break down after 100 miles. The British take them. They take everything. A rifle is a rifle. A truck is a truck. A bullet is a bullet. They take it all, and they paint it with British markings, and they send it to the front. And in the Atlantic, the wolves are still hunting. In March of 1941, the same month the law passes, the U-boats sink more than 500,000 tons of shipping. In April, it is almost 700,000. The new ships, the American ships, the Lend-Lease ships, are not even built yet. The old ships are still dying. The men are still drowning. Thomas O'Leary is back at sea. He survived the San Demetrio. He spent 3 days in that lifeboat before a British destroyer found them. He lost 2 fingers to frostbite. They were black. The ship's doctor cut them off with a knife. No anesthetic. Just a leather strap to bite on. He signed on to a new ship 2 months later. He is 22 years old. He has no fingers on his left hand. He cannot work on the docks. He cannot work in a factory. He can only sail. He is a merchant seaman. He is a civilian. He is the rope. His new ship is called the SS Beaverford. She is a freighter. She carries ammunition and tanks and cases of Spam. Spam is a new food. It comes in a blue can. It is made of pork and ham and sugar and salt. It is not good. But it does not spoil. It floats. It will keep a man alive. Thomas O'Leary stacks the cans in the hold. He thinks about the water. He thinks about the cold. He thinks about the hands that pulled him into the lifeboat. He never knew who they were. They died that night. He is alive. He does not know why. The Beaverford sails in convoy. The escort is stronger now. There are destroyers and corvettes, and a single escort carrier, a flat-topped ship that launches little biplanes to hunt the submarines. But the wolves are smarter now. They wait. They watch. They call in the pack. They attack at night on the surface where the radar cannot see them. Thomas O'Leary stands on the deck and looks at the water. The water is black. The water is empty. The water is full of ghosts. He lights a cigarette. He cups his hand around the match. He has no fingers on that hand. The match flares. He takes a drag. He looks at the horizon. Somewhere out there, a German officer is looking through a periscope. He sees the silhouette of the Beaverford. He sees the smoke from its stack. He sees the men on the deck. He gives an order. A torpedo leaves its tube. It is a steel tube packed with explosives. It is 700 kilos. It travels at 30 knots. It leaves a trail of bubbles in the black water. Thomas O'Leary does not see the bubbles. He is smoking his cigarette. He is thinking about Liverpool. He is thinking about his mother. He is thinking about the cold. He has 5 minutes. The Arctic is not an ocean. It is a weapon. The water is 28 degrees. It is below freezing. It does not freeze only because it is salt. But salt does not matter to a human body. In 28-degree water, the blood retreats to the core. It abandons the arms. It abandons the legs. It wraps around the heart and the brain and lets everything else die. A man in this water does not drown. He does not have time. His muscles lock. His lungs fill with fluid. His heart slows until it stops. It takes 3 to 5 minutes. Sometimes less if the man is old. Sometimes less if the man is tired. Sometimes less if the man has already done this before. The men who sail the Arctic convoys have done it before. They have done it many times. They are merchant seamen. They are British. They are American. They are Norwegian. They are Chinese. They are men from a dozen countries who speak a dozen languages, but understand one thing. The water is the enemy. The ice is the enemy. The Germans are just another enemy. The first convoy to Russia sails in August of 1941. It is codenamed Dervish. It is small, 6 ships. They carry rubber and tin and wool and bombs. They sail from Iceland to Archangel. The route is new. No one has done this before. The navigators stare at charts that show blank spaces. The ice reports are vague. The weather is a mystery. They go anyway. They arrive. The Russians are surprised. They did not think the British would actually come. They unload the ships quickly. They send them back. The convoy works. By the spring of 1942, the convoys are huge. 50 ships, 60 ships. They stretch across the horizon. They carry tanks and planes and trucks and fuel and food and medicine and boots and blankets and bullets. They carry everything a nation at war needs to survive. They carry the arsenal of democracy into the heart of the Arctic winter. And the Germans are waiting. The Germans have built a fortress in Norway. They have airfields and submarine pens and surface ships. They have the Tirpitz. The Tirpitz is a battleship. She is 43,000 tons. She carries 8 15-inch guns. She is the largest battleship in the European theater. She sits in a fjord in northern Norway, surrounded by anti-torpedo nets and anti-aircraft batteries. She does not need to sail. She just needs to exist. Her existence changes everything. Every convoy that sails must assume that the Tirpitz is coming. Every escort must be ready to fight a ship they cannot possibly defeat. The Tirpitz is a ghost. She is a threat. She is a nightmare. The men on the merchant ships do not think about the Tirpitz. They think about the cold. They think about the ice. They think about the bombers. The bombers come from airfields in Norway. They are Heinkel 100s and 11s and Junkers 88s. They carry torpedoes and bombs. They fly low over the water, below the radar, and they pop up right in front of the ships. The gunners on the merchant ships are amateurs. They are cooks and electricians and deckhands who have been handed a machine gun and told to shoot. They shoot. Sometimes they hit something. Usually they do not. The bombers keep coming. The U-boats keep coming too. They wait in the gaps between the escort vessels. They listen for the propellers. They hear the convoy from 50 miles away. They move into position. They wait for night. They surface. They run in on the dark side. They fire. They dive. They listen for the explosions. They surface again. They count the hits. They radio the next pack. The pack moves in. It is a feeding frenzy. But the worst enemy is not the Germans. The worst enemy is the weather. The Arctic winter is dark. The sun does not rise for months. The sky is black. The sea is black. The ships are black. A man cannot see his hand in front of his face. He cannot see the ship next to him. He cannot see the iceberg until he hits it. He cannot see the ice forming on the deck. The ice forms fast. It forms from the spray of the waves. It coats the decks in a layer of glass. It coats the guns. It coats the ropes. It coats the men. A man who stands still too long will freeze to the deck. His boots will freeze. His trousers will freeze. His coat will freeze. He will become a statue. The crew will have to chip him loose with axes. Sometimes they do not bother. Sometimes they just leave him. There is no time. There is never enough time. The ships themselves are not built for this. They are built for the Atlantic. They are built for warm water. The cold makes them brittle. The steel snaps. The welds crack. The pipes burst. The lifeboats are covered in ice so thick they cannot be lowered. The davits freeze. The ropes freeze. The blocks freeze. If a ship goes down, the men have nowhere to go. They have a lifeboat that weighs 3 tons and is frozen to the deck. They have life rafts that are buried under ice. They have nothing. They have the water. The water is 28 degrees. In May of 1942, a man named John Carter watches the water from the bridge of a freighter called the SS Carleton. He is the first mate. He is 34 years old. He is from Maine. He has been at sea since he was 16. He has never seen anything like this. The Carleton is part of convoy PQ-16. It is the largest convoy yet. 35 ships. They are loaded with tanks and planes and ammunition. They are heading for Murmansk. Murmansk is a port in northern Russia. It is not a nice port. It is a collection of wooden sheds and broken cranes and frozen mud. But it is the only port. The ships must get there. The supplies must get there. The Red Army is fighting outside Moscow. The Red Army is dying. The Red Army needs these tanks. John Carter does not think about the Red Army. He thinks about the ice on the deck. He thinks about the bomber that flew over an hour ago. He thinks about the U-boat that was reported 10 miles astern. He thinks about the fact that he has not slept in 3 days. He thinks about his wife. Her name is Margaret. She is in Maine. She is pregnant. She is due in August. He will not be there. He knows he will not be there. He does not know if he will be anywhere. The convoy is spread out over 10 miles. The escort is strong. There are destroyers and corvettes and anti-aircraft ships. There is even a cruiser, the HMS Nigeria. But the escort cannot be everywhere. The bombers come in waves. They come low, skipping their torpedoes across the water. They come high, dropping bombs that whistle as they fall. They come at dawn. They come at dusk. They come at noon. They never stop coming. The Carleton is hit at 3 in the afternoon. The bomb comes through the number 2 hold. It explodes inside. The hold is full of tanks. The tanks are made of steel. The steel turns into shrapnel. The shrapnel tears through the bulkheads. The ship shudders. John Carter is thrown against the bulkhead. He hits his head. He bleeds. He gets up. He runs to the bridge. The captain is there. The captain is an old man. He has white hair. He is from Glasgow. He looks at John Carter and says, "We are done." The Carleton is sinking. The bow is down. The stern is up. The ice on the deck cracks and falls into the sea. The crew is trying to launch the lifeboats. The boats are frozen. They cannot move. The The men are chipping at the ice with axes. They are cursing. They are crying. They are praying. The ship is listing. It is going over. John Carter runs to the rail. He jumps. He hits the water. The water is 28 degrees. He does not scream. He cannot. The cold steals his breath. It steals his voice. It steals his thoughts. He kicks. His legs do not work. He paddles. His arms do not work. He floats. He looks at the ship. The ship is vertical now. The propellers are in the air. They are still turning. They are spinning slowly in the wind. Then the ship slides under. The water closes over it. There is a sucking sound. Then there is nothing. John Carter is alone in the water. He looks around. He sees other men. They are floating. They are wearing life jackets. Their heads are back. Their mouths are open. They are gasping. Some of them are not moving. Some of them are already dead. The dead men look peaceful. Their faces are white. Their eyes are closed. They look like they are sleeping. John Carter wants to sleep. He is so tired. He is so cold. He wants to close his eyes. A hand grabs his collar. It is a strong hand. It is attached to a rope. The rope is attached to a life raft. The life raft is small. It is round. It is made of rubber and canvas. There are men on it. They are pulling him. He tries to help. He cannot. They pull him onto the raft. He lies there. He shakes. He shakes so hard the raft shakes with him. The men cover him with a blanket. The blanket is wet. It is cold. It does nothing. He shakes for an hour. He shakes until the shaking stops. Then he lies still. He listens to the water. He listens to the wind. He listens to the cries of the men who are still in the water. The cries get fewer. Then they stop. The next morning, a destroyer picks them up. There are 12 men on the raft. There were 20 when they started. The others slipped off during the night. They slipped off, and they did not come back. John Carter does not remember them. He does not remember anything after the shaking stopped. He wakes up in a bunk on the destroyer. He is wrapped in blankets. There is a hot water bottle against his chest. A sailor is standing over him. The sailor is young. He has red hair. He is smiling. He says, "You made it, mate." John Carter looks at him. He does not speak. He thinks about Margaret. He thinks about Maine. He thinks about the water. He will think about the water for the rest of his life. PQ-16 loses 7 ships. 7 ships and their cargoes and their crews. The rest make it to Murmansk. They are greeted by Russian officials who count every crate and complain about the paperwork. They are not thanked. They are not welcomed. They are processed. Then they are sent back to Iceland to do it again. But the worst is yet to come. In June of 1942, convoy PQ-17 sails from Iceland. It is the biggest convoy yet. 35 merchant ships. They carry more than 200,000 tons of supplies. They carry tanks and planes and trucks and fuel and food. They carry everything the Red Army needs for the summer offensive. They are escorted by a powerful force of destroyers and corvettes and anti-aircraft ships. And lurking in the distance, ready to pounce if the Germans come out, is a covering force of cruisers and battleships. The Germans do come out. The Tirpitz sails. She leaves her fjord. She heads for the convoy. The British Admiralty in London gets the news. They panic. They have faced the Tirpitz before. They know what she can do. They know she can destroy the entire escort in an hour. They know she can slaughter the merchant ships like sheep. They make a decision. The order is sent by radio. It is simple. It is devastating. It says, convoy is to scatter. Scatter means every ship for itself. Scatter means the escort vessels will withdraw and fight the Tirpitz. Scatter means the merchant ships will spread out across the ocean and try to reach Russia alone. It sounds logical on paper. In practice, it is a death sentence. The merchant ships scatter. They turn in every direction. They try to hide in the ice. They try to hide in the fog. They try to hide in the endless gray water. But the Germans are not fooled. The Germans have aircraft. The Germans have U-boats. The Germans have radar. The Germans have all the time in the world. The slaughter begins. The first ship goes down at noon. A bomb hits the engine room. The ship stops. The crew abandons ship. The U-boats move in. They fire torpedoes into the hulks. The hulks burn. The oil spreads across the water. The oil catches fire. The men in the water burn. They scream. They scream for a long time. The next ship goes down at 2, then another at 3, then another at 4. The U-boats are having a party. They surface in the middle of the scattered ships. They pick their targets. They fire. They watch the explosions. They dive. They surface again. They do it again. They do it all night. They do it all the next day. A ship called the SS Washington is hit by 3 torpedoes. She breaks in half. The bow sinks. The stern floats for a while. Men are trapped in the stern. They wave from the portholes. They cannot get out. The stern sinks. The water closes over them. A ship called the SS Hoosier is hit by a bomb. The bomb starts a fire in the hold. The hold is full of ammunition. The crew tries to put out the fire. They cannot. The captain gives the order to abandon ship. The lifeboats are lowered. The men row away. They watch from a distance. The ship explodes. The explosion is so bright it lights up the sky for a second. Then there is nothing. A ship called the SS Pan-Atlantic is shelled by a U-boat on the surface. The U-boat is close. The German sailors are on the deck. They are laughing. They are pointing. They fire the deck gun. The shells hit the bridge. They hit the lifeboats. They hit the men who are trying to lower the boats. The Pan-Atlantic sinks in 10 minutes. The Germans leave. The men in the water watch the submarine disappear. They are alone. They are very alone. The water is 28 degrees. For 3 days, the killing continues. The U-boats hunt down the scattered ships one by one. The bombers find them from the air. The sea is covered in oil and debris and bodies. The bodies float in their life jackets. They bob in the waves. They look like buoys. They mark the graves of the ships. When it is over, 24 of the 35 ships are gone. More than 150,000 tons of supplies are at the bottom of the Arctic Ocean. More than 300 merchant seamen are dead. The Tirpitz never even fired a shot. The Admiralty panicked for nothing. The German battleship turned back after a day at sea. She never got within 200 miles of the convoy. But the order had been given. The ships had scattered. The men had died. In London, the Admiralty tries to cover it up. They call it a misfortune. They call it a lesson. They call it the price of war. In Murmansk, the survivors stumble off the rescue ships. They are hollow. They are empty. They are alive. They do not know why. One of them is a man named Erik Johansen. He is a Norwegian. He is 26. He was on a tanker called the SS Bellingham. The Bellingham was hit by a torpedo and a bomb. She burned for 6 hours before she sank. Erik Johansen spent 4 hours in the water. He was picked up by a rescue ship. He is standing on the dock in Murmansk. He is wearing a blanket. He is holding a cup of tea. He is staring at nothing. A Russian officer walks up to him. The officer looks at his papers. The officer looks at his face. The officer says, "Where is your ship?" Erik Johansson looks at him. He does not speak. He cannot speak. The officer asks again, "Where is your ship?" Erik Johansson points at the sea. He points at the gray water. He points at the horizon. The officer nods. He makes a note on his clipboard. He walks away. There is no thank you. There is no welcome. There is just the cold and the water and the next convoy. Because the next convoy is already forming. The supplies must get through. The Red Army is waiting. The war is waiting. The Arctic does not care about the dead. The Arctic does not care about anything. The Arctic is just a weapon. And the men who sail into it are just ammunition. The tank is called Matilda. She is 27 tons of British steel. She is slow. She is painfully slow. Her top speed is 15 miles per hour on a good road. Off-road, she crawls. A man can walk faster than a Matilda. But the Matilda has armor. 78 millimeters on the front. 78 millimeters of rolled steel that German anti-tank guns cannot penetrate. In the desert, against the Italians, the Matilda is a monster. In Russia, against the cold, she is something else. Sergeant Mikhail Petrov has never seen a Matilda. He has seen T-34s. He has seen KV-1s. He has seen the wreckage of German panzers. He has been fighting since June of 1941. He has been wounded twice. He has lost more friends than he can count. He is 23 years old. He looks 40. He is standing in the snow outside Moscow in November of 1941. The temperature is 20 below zero. The German army is 20 miles away. The Soviet army is running out of tanks. The factory in Stalingrad is still building T-34s. The factory in Chelyabinsk is still building KV-1s. But they cannot build them fast enough. The Germans have destroyed thousands. The retreat has cost thousands more. The Red Army is burning through tanks like matches. And winter is coming. Winter is already here. The ground is frozen hard. The snow is deep. The German tanks are stuck. The German soldiers are freezing. This is the moment to counterattack. This is the moment to push them back from Moscow. But there are no tanks. Then the train arrives. It is a long train, 50 cars. They are covered in ice. They have been sitting on the tracks for 3 days, waiting for the line to clear. The men from the tank brigade gather around. They are curious. They have heard rumors. They have heard that the British are sending tanks. They have heard that the Americans are sending tanks. They have heard that these tanks are strange. They have heard that these tanks are useless. The doors open. Inside, covered in grease and packed in straw, are the Matildas. They are boxy. They are ugly. They have no sharp angles. They look like toys. The Soviet mechanics climb inside. They look at the engines. They look at the guns. They look at the controls. They shake their heads. The engines are weak. The tracks are narrow. The gun is only a 2-pounder. That is a 40-millimeter gun. It fires a solid shot that weighs about 2 pounds. It is good against machine gun nests. It is useless against German tanks. The mechanics laugh. They call it a coffin. Sergeant Mikhail Petrov does not laugh. He walks around the Matilda. He knocks on the armor. He feels the thickness. He knows what 78 millimeters means. He knows that the German Panzer III has a 50-millimeter gun. He knows that at normal combat range, that gun will bounce off this armor like a pebble. He knows that if he can get close, if he can get within a few hundred yards, his 2-pounder can hit the German in the side. He knows that a tank, is not just a gun. A tank is a weapon system. A tank is armor and mobility and firepower. This tank has armor. That is enough. He volunteers to drive it. The training is short, 3 days. The British have sent manuals. The manuals are in English. No one reads English. The Soviet mechanics draw pictures. They point at levers. They make hand signals. The drivers learn by doing. They start the engines. They move forward. They stop. They turn. They do it again. They do it 100 times. They break down. They fix the breakdowns. They break down again. The Matildas are complicated. They have too many systems. They have too many parts. But they are warm. The engines put out heat. The crews sit inside and feel the warmth and remember that the German soldiers are sleeping in the snow. On December 5th, 1941, the counterattack begins. The Soviet army hits the German lines north and south of Moscow. The Germans are exhausted. They are frozen. They are out of supplies. They did not plan for a winter war. They do not have winter clothing. They do not have antifreeze. They do not have warm oil for their guns. They are sitting in the snow, waiting for orders to retreat. And then the tanks come. Mikhail Petrov's Matilda moves forward. She is slow. She is very slow. The infantry pass her. They run ahead. They shout at her. They call her names. Petrov does not care. He watches the tree line. He watches for the flash of German guns. He sees a farmhouse. The farmhouse has a machine gun in the window. The machine gun is firing at the infantry. The infantry are pinned down. They are dying in the snow. Petrov points the Matilda at the farmhouse. He tells the driver to go straight. The driver goes straight. The machine gun bullets ping off the armor. They sound like rain. They sound like nothing. The Matilda reaches the farmhouse. She pushes through the wall. The wall collapses. The machine gun stops. The infantry get up. They wave, they cheer, they move forward. This is the Matilda's war. She is not a tank killer. She is an infantry support tank. She is a mobile pillbox. She is a shield. She takes the hits that would kill the men. She absorbs the bullets that would stop the advance. She is slow and ugly and obsolete, but she is there. She is there when the infantry need her. She is there when there is nothing else. By the spring of 1942, the Matildas are everywhere. They have fought outside Moscow. They have fought outside Leningrad. They have fought in the snow and the mud and the rain. They have broken down. They have been repaired. They have been abandoned. They have been captured. But they have never been useless. The Soviet crews have learned to love them. They call them the Iron Nanny. They paint slogans on the sides. They write letters to the British factories. They say thank you. The British factories do not understand. The British factories think the Matilda is obsolete. They are building newer tanks. They are building Churchills and Crusaders. They are sending the Matildas to Russia because they do not want them. The Russians take them. The Russians use them. The Russians keep them running long after they should have died. But the Matilda is not the tank that wins the war. The tank that wins the war comes later. It comes from America. It is called the M4 Sherman. The Sherman is not the best tank in the world. The German Tiger is better. The German Panther is better. The Soviet JS-2 is better. The Sherman is medium. It has medium armor. It has a medium gun. It has a medium speed. But the Sherman has one thing that no other tank has. The Sherman has numbers. The Sherman has factories. The Sherman has America. The first Shermans arrive in Russia in late 1942.
They are sent to the southern front. They are sent to Stalingrad.
The battle for Stalingrad is the bloodiest battle in human history. The city is a ruin. The streets are graves. The fighting is house to house, room to room, hand to hand. Tanks are useless in this fighting. They are ambushed by men with grenades. They are destroyed by anti-tank rifles. They are burned in the streets. The Red Army needs tanks, but not here. They need tanks for the steppe. They need tanks for the counterattack. The counterattack comes in November. It is called Operation Uranus. It is a massive pincer movement around the German Sixth Army. The Soviet tanks pour through the gaps in the German lines. They move fast. They move in the snow. They move at night. They surround the Germans. They cut them off. They trap them. The Germans starve. The Germans freeze. The Germans surrender. The tanks that do this are mostly T-34s. But the Shermans are there. They are in the second echelon. They are following up. They are mopping up. They are proving themselves. The Soviet crews are watching. They are learning. Lieutenant Ivan Kozlov commands a Sherman. He is 26. He is from a village near Kiev. He has been in the army since 1938. He survived the purges. He survived the retreat. He survived Stalingrad. He is a professional. He knows tanks. He has driven T-34s. He has driven British Valentines. He has driven American Stuart light tanks. He knows that the Sherman is different. The first thing he notices is the comfort. The Sherman has a heater. A real heater. The crew can take off their coats inside. They can feel their fingers. They can eat without their food freezing. This is a luxury. This is a miracle. The second thing he notices is the radio. The Sherman has a radio that works. It works all the time. It works while moving. It works in the cold. Kozlov can talk to the other tanks. He can talk to headquarters. He can coordinate. This changes everything. In a T-34, the commander waves flags. In a Sherman, the commander talks. It is faster. It is smarter. It is better. The third thing he notices is the reliability. The Sherman does not break down. The engine starts every time. The tracks stay on. The gun fires. This is not true of the T-34. The T-34 is a great tank. It is simple. It is rugged. But it is built fast. The quality control is poor. The gears grind. The clutches slip. The engines smoke. The Sherman is built by people who have time. It is built by people who care. It is built by people who have never been bombed. It shows. In the summer of 1943, the Shermans go to Kursk. Kursk is the largest tank battle in history. 2 million men. 6,000 tanks. The Germans throw their best at the Soviet lines. They throw Tigers and Panthers and Ferdinands. They throw elite SS divisions. They throw everything they have. The Soviet lines bend. They buckle. They do not break. Ivan Kozlov's Sherman is in the reserve. They are waiting. They are listening to the radio. The radio brings news of the battle. It brings news of death. The tanks are dying by the hundreds. The T-34s are burning. The German Tigers are killing from long range. The Soviet gunners have to get close. They have to get within 500 meters. They have to sacrifice themselves to kill one Tiger. The losses are staggering. Then the order comes. The reserve moves forward. Kozlov's Sherman rolls into the smoke. He sees the wrecks. He sees the burned-out T-34s. He sees the German Panthers, turrets blown off, tracks hanging loose. He sees the bodies. The bodies are everywhere. They are Soviet. They are German. They are burned. They are torn.
They are scattered across the wheat field like rag dolls. Kozlov finds a target. A German Panzer IV is hull down behind a ridge. It is firing at Soviet infantry. The infantry cannot move. They are pinned. Kozlov tells his driver to go left. The Sherman moves. The ground is rough. The Sherman bounces. Kozlov sights the gun. He fires. The shell hits the Panzer IV in the side. The tank explodes. The turret flies into the air. It lands upside down. The infantry get up. They run forward. They do not look back. This is the Sherman's war. It is not glamorous. It is not heroic. It is just work. The Sherman kills Panzer IVs. It kills stooges. It kills half-tracks and trucks and machine gun nests. It stays away from tigers. It lets the artillery handle the tigers. It does its job. It keeps moving. It keeps fighting. It keeps the infantry alive. By the end of 1943, the Red Army has received more than 2,000 Shermans. By the end of 1944, it has received more than 4,000. They are everywhere. They are on every front. They are in the Ukraine. They are in Belarus. They are in Poland. They are driving toward Berlin. The Soviet crews have names for them. They call them Emsha. It is a nickname. It is a term of affection. The Emsha is not the best tank. But the Emsha is the tank that is there. The Emsha is the tank that works. The Emsha is the tank that brings them home. But the machines that save the Red Army are not just tanks. They are trucks. They are thousands and thousands of trucks. The Red Army in 1941 is an infantry army. It marches, it walks, it moves on its feet. The German army is motorized. The Germans have trucks. The Germans have half-tracks. The Germans have motorcycles. The Germans move fast. They move faster than the Russians. They surround them. They trap them. They destroy them. The Red Army learns. The Red Army adapts. The Red Army asks for trucks. America sends trucks. It sends the Studebaker US-6. It is a 6x4 truck. It has a powerful engine. It has high ground clearance. It can carry 2.5 tons. It can go anywhere. It can go through mud. It can go through snow. It can go through rivers. It is the backbone of the Red Army. The Studebaker does not fight. It does not shoot. It does not kill. But without the Studebaker, the Red Army cannot move. The Studebaker carries the soldiers. It carries the food.
It carries the ammunition. It carries the fuel. It carries the medicine. It carries the mail. It carries everything. In the summer of 1944, the Red Army launches Operation Bagration. It is the largest offensive of the war. It destroys the German Army Group Center. It advances 300 miles in 2 months. It liberates Belarus. It liberates Poland. It reaches the gates of Warsaw. The offensive is possible because of trucks. The Red Army has learned to move fast. It has learned to supply over long distances. It has learned to keep the tanks fueled and the guns firing. The trucks make this possible. The trucks also carry the Katyushas. The Katyusha is a rocket launcher. It is a simple thing. It is a rack of rails mounted on a truck. It fires 16 rockets in 10 seconds. The rockets scream. They make a terrible noise. The Germans call them Stalin's organs. The sound drives men insane. The Katyusha is mounted on the Studebaker. The Studebaker is the only truck that can handle the weight and the recoil. Without the Studebaker, the Katyusha is just a trailer. With the Studebaker, it is a weapon of terror. The Studebaker is everywhere. It is in the mud, it is in the snow, it is in the dust. It is broken down on the side of the road. It is repaired with wire and hope. It is driven by women. It is driven by boys. It is driven by old men. It never stops. It never quits. It is the heart of the army. And then there is the food. The American food comes in cans. It comes in crates. It comes in boxes. It is strange. It is unfamiliar. It is not Russian. But it is food. And food is life. The most famous is Spam. Spam is chopped pork and ham. It is processed. It is preserved. It comes in a blue can. It is not good. It is salty. It is fatty. It is strange. But it is meat. The Soviet soldiers have not seen meat in months. They have been living on bread and cabbage and whatever they can find. Spam is a miracle. They fry it. They boil it. They put it in soup. They eat it cold. They complain about it. They make jokes about it. But they eat it. They eat every bite. There is also the tushanka. The Americans do not call it tushanka. They call it pork stew. But it is the same thing. It is meat cooked in fat. It comes in a can. It is rich. It is heavy. It is exactly what a starving man needs. The Soviet soldiers trade for it. They hoard it. They save it for special occasions. They open a can on New Year's Eve and they toast the Americans. They do not know any Americans. They do not know where America is. But they know that America sent them meat. They know that America sent them food. They know that America kept them alive. There is also the powdered eggs. The Americans call them dried eggs. The Soviet soldiers call them the magic eggs. They come in a powder. You add water. You get eggs. They do not taste like eggs. They taste like powder. But they are protein. They are breakfast. They are fuel. The soldiers eat them, and they do not complain. They cannot complain. The alternative is nothing. By the end of the war, America has sent more than 4 million tons of food to the Soviet Union. 4 million tons. That is enough to feed an army. That is enough to feed 12 million soldiers for the duration of the war. That is enough to make the difference between life and death. The Soviet soldiers do not know the numbers. They do not know the statistics. They only know that when they open a can, they are still alive. In the winter of 1944, Ivan Kozlov is outside Warsaw. He is still in his Sherman. He has survived 2 years of war. He has survived Kursk. He has survived the Ukraine. He has survived Belarus. He has seen his friends die. He has seen his tanks burn. He has seen things that no man should see. But he is alive. He is sitting in his Sherman, eating a can of American pork stew. The stew is cold. It is fatty. It is delicious. He looks at the can. It has a label. The label says, Chicago, Illinois. He does not know where that is.
He does not care. He knows that somewhere, someone made this can. Someone packed it. Someone sent it across the ocean. Someone risked their life to bring it to him. He does not know their names. He does not know their faces. But he knows that they saved him. He finishes the stew. He puts the can down. He looks at the road ahead. The road leads to Berlin. The road leads to the end. He starts the engine. The Sherman roars to life. The heater blows warm air. The radio crackles with orders. He moves forward. He is not alone. Behind him, thousands of Studebakers carry the fuel and the food and the ammunition. Beside him, thousands of Shermans and Matildas and Valentines roll through the snow. They are American. They are British. They are Canadian. They are Russian. They are all going the same way. They are all going to Berlin. The war is not won by soldiers. The war is won by steel and oil and food and the men who die to bring them. But there is another war. It is a war that no one sees. It is a war fought in factories and laboratories and on the endless roads of the Soviet Union. It is a war fought by mechanics and chemists and drivers and clerks. It is a war fought by women. And without this war, the soldiers at the front would starve, they would freeze, they would run out of bullets, they would die. This is the story of the invisible front. The train station in Baku is crowded. It is always crowded. Baku is the oil capital of the Soviet Union. The oil comes out of the ground here. It is loaded onto trains. The trains go north. They go to the factories. They go to the armies. They go to the front. But the trains are slow. The trains are old. The trains are always breaking down. And the Germans are coming. In the summer of 1942, the German army drives toward the Caucasus. They want the oil. They need the oil. Without oil, their tanks cannot move. Their planes cannot fly. Their ships cannot sail. Hitler has sent his best armies to capture Baku.
If they succeed, the Soviet Union dies. The Red Army grinds to a halt. The trucks stop. The tanks stop. The war stops. The Soviet command knows this. They have known it since the beginning. They have planned for it. They have stockpiled oil. They have hidden refineries. They have built pipelines. But the stockpiles are running out. The refineries are being bombed. The pipelines are being cut. The Soviet Union is burning through oil faster than it can produce it. And the Germans are getting closer. The Americans have oil. Texas has oil. Oklahoma has oil. California has oil. The Americans have more oil than they know what to do with. But the oil is in America. The tanks are in Russia. The distance is half the world. The only way to get the oil across is in ships. The ships must cross the Atlantic. They must cross the Arctic. They must dodge the U-boats. They must survive the bombers. They must make it to Murmansk or Archangel or Vladivostok. Then the oil must be loaded onto trains. The trains must cross Russia. The trains must travel thousands of miles. The trains must avoid the German bombers and the partisans and the breakdowns. Then the oil must be unloaded and put into trucks. The trucks must drive to the front. The trucks must drive through mud and snow and shellfire. And then finally, the oil reaches the tanks. The tanks can move. The war continues. This is the invisible front. It is a front of distance. It is a front of logistics. It is a front that no one sees and everyone depends on. The Americans send oil. They send it in drums. They send it in tankers. They send it in cans. They send millions of tons of it. They send aviation gasoline for the planes. They send diesel for the trucks. They send lubricants for the guns. They send everything that burns or moves or needs to be greased. By the end of the war, America has sent more than 2 million tons of petroleum products to the Soviet Union. 2 million tons. That is enough to fuel an entire army. That is enough to keep the Red Army moving from Stalingrad to Berlin. But oil is not enough. Oil is useless without something to put it in. The Soviet Union has trucks. It has some trucks. It has trucks made in Moscow and Gorky and Yaroslavl. But it does not have enough trucks. It has never had enough trucks. The war has destroyed thousands of them. The mud has swallowed thousands more. The Red Army is always short of trucks. The soldiers walk. The supplies wait. The offensives stall. The Americans send trucks. They send Studebakers. They send GMCs. They send Fords. They send Chevy. They send everything with wheels. By the end of the war, America has sent more than 400,000 trucks to the Soviet Union. 400,000. That is more trucks than the entire Soviet Union built during the war. That is a river of vehicles. That is an army on wheels. The trucks change everything. They change the way the Red Army fights. Before the trucks, the Red Army moves at the speed of a marching man. After the trucks, the Red Army moves at the speed of a gasoline engine. The trucks carry the infantry. They carry the supplies. They carry the artillery. They carry the wounded. They carry everything. The Red Army becomes mobile. It becomes fast. It becomes unstoppable. In the summer of 1944, the Red Army launches Operation Bagration. It is the largest offensive of the war. It advances 300 miles in 2 months. It destroys the German Army Group Center. It liberates Belarus. It liberates Poland. It reaches the gates of Warsaw. This offensive is possible because of trucks. The trucks carry the fuel. The trucks carry the ammunition. The trucks carry the food. The trucks keep the army alive. Without the trucks, the offensive stops. Without the trucks, the Germans regroup. Without the trucks, the war lasts another year. The drivers of these trucks are not always men. They are often women. They are young women. They are girls. They are 18 years old. They are 19. They have never driven before. They learn in a week. They are sent to the front. They drive day and night. They drive through mud. They drive through snow. They drive through shellfire. They drive until their eyes blur and their hands freeze to the wheel. They drive and they drive and they drive. They do not stop. They cannot stop. The army needs them. One of them is a girl named Anna. She is 19. She is from a village near Smolensk. The Germans burned her village. They killed her parents. They killed her brothers. She escaped. She walked 200 miles to Moscow. She joined the army. They gave her a uniform. They gave her a truck. They gave her a mission. She drives a Studebaker. She carries ammunition to the front. She carries wounded men back. She does this every day. She does this every night. She has been doing it for 2 years. She has been shot at. She has been bombed. She has been stranded. She has been frozen. She is still driving. She will keep driving until the war ends or she dies. She does not think about it. She just drives. But the trucks and the oil are only part of the story. The war is also fought with chemicals. The Americans send chemicals. They send them in barrels and crates and boxes. They send explosives. They send nitrocellulose and TNT and RDX. They send the stuff that makes bullets fly and shells burst. The Soviet Union has explosives. It has factories. It has chemists. But it does not have enough. The Germans have destroyed the factories. The Germans have captured the chemists. The Germans have cut the supply lines. The Red Army is always running low on ammunition. The guns are always hungry. They need to be fed. The Americans feed them. They send more than 800,000 tons of explosives. 800,000 tons. That is enough to fill 10,000 railway cars. That is enough to keep the guns firing for the entire war. The Soviet soldiers do not see the explosives. They do not know where they come from. They only know that when they pull the trigger, the gun goes bang. They only know that when they need shells, the shells are there. They do not ask where they came from. They are too busy shooting. The Americans also send chemicals for other things. They send copper. Copper is for wires. Wires are for communication. Communication is for winning. The Red Army in 1941 fights with flags and runners and messengers. It is slow. It is clumsy. It is blind. The Germans have radios. The Germans talk to each other. The Germans coordinate. The Germans move fast. The Red Army learns. The Red Army adapts. The Red Army asks for radios. The Americans send radios. They send them by the thousands. They send them by the tens of thousands. They send field radios and tank radios and aircraft radios. They send wire. Miles and miles of wire. Copper wire. Aluminum wire. Steel wire. Wire to connect the headquarters to the front. Wire to connect the artillery to the observers. Wire to connect the tanks to each other. The Red Army becomes wired. It becomes connected. It becomes fast. By 1944, a Soviet commander can talk to his units. He can coordinate his attacks. He can shift his forces. He can react to the enemy. This is a revolution. This is a transformation. This is made possible by American copper and American factories and American ships that crossed the Arctic and died in the ice so that the wire could get through. And then there is the rubber. Rubber is stupid. Rubber is boring. Rubber is just something that tires are made of. But without rubber, the trucks do not move, the tanks do not move, the planes do not land. The war stops. The Soviet Union has no rubber. It never had much rubber. The rubber came from Southeast Asia. The Japanese took Southeast Asia. The rubber is gone. The Soviet Union is desperate. It builds synthetic rubber factories. It makes rubber from potatoes and limestone and coal. It is expensive. It is slow. It is not enough. The Americans send rubber. They send it in bales. They send it in blocks. They send it in tires. They send natural rubber from Brazil and Liberia and Ceylon. They send synthetic rubber from factories in Ohio and Texas. They send more than 100,000 tons of rubber. 100,000 tons. That is enough for millions of tires. That is enough to keep the trucks rolling. That is enough to keep the army mobile. The rubber arrives in Murmansk. It is unloaded by hand. It is loaded onto trains. The trains go south. They go to the tire factories. The tire factories are in Moscow and Yaroslavl and Omsk. The workers are women and children and old men. They work 16 hours a day. They work in the cold. They work in the dark. They build tires. They build thousands of tires. They build millions of tires. The tires go to the front. The trucks get new shoes. The trucks keep rolling. The war continues. But the invisible front is not just about supplies. It is about people. It is about the women who work in the factories. It is about the men who die on the convoys. It is about the children who sort the mail. It is about everyone who is not a soldier, but without whom the soldier cannot fight. In a factory in Chelyabinsk, a woman named Maria works 16 hours a day. She builds tank engines. She has been building tank engines since 1941. Her husband is at the front. She has not heard from him in 6 months. She does not know if he is alive. She does not know if he is dead. She builds engines anyway. She builds them because she has to. She builds them because if she stops, the tanks stop. If the tanks stop, her husband dies. She builds engines. She builds them every day. She builds them in the cold. She builds them in the heat. She builds them when she is hungry. She builds them when she is tired. She builds them when she is sick. She builds them. She never stops. The engines she builds are not Russian engines. They are American engines. They are Wright Cyclone engines. They are built under license. The Americans sent the blueprints. The Americans sent the machine tools. The Americans sent the experts. The Russians build the engines. The engines go into T-34s. The T-34s go to the front. They fight the Germans. They win. Maria does not know this. She does not know where her engines go. She does not know who drives them. She only knows that she builds them.
She builds them and she prays. In the port of Vladivostok, a man named Dmitri works on the docks. He is 50 years old. He is too old to fight. He unloads ships. The ships come from America. They cross the Pacific. They are not attacked. Japan and the Soviet Union are not at war. The Pacific route is safe. It is the safest route. It is also the longest. The ships come from Seattle and San Francisco. They carry tanks and planes and trucks and food. They carry everything. Dmitri unloads them. He works 12 hours a day. He works in the rain. He works in the snow. He works in the heat. He lifts crates. He carries boxes. He stacks barrels. He never stops. The crates are heavy. Some of them weigh a ton. The dock workers use cranes. The cranes break. They fix them. They use ropes. The ropes break. They tie them again. They use their hands. Their hands bleed. They wrap them in rags. They keep working. They work until the ship is empty. Then another ship comes. They start again. They do this every day. They have been doing it for 3 years. They will keep doing it until the war ends. Dmitri does not know what is in the crates. He does not care. He knows that they are for the front. He knows that they are for his sons. He has 3 sons. They are all at the front. He has not seen them in 2 years. He does not know if they are alive. He unloads the crates. He hopes that one of them contains something that will keep his sons alive. He hopes that one of them contains food or medicine or bullets. He hopes. He works. He hopes.
In a village in Siberia, a girl named Katya collects the mail. She is 12 years old. She rides a horse. She rides from village to village. She carries letters. The letters are from the front. They are from husbands and fathers and sons. They are the only connection between the soldiers and their families. Katya delivers them. She rides through the snow. She rides through the rain. She rides through the mud. She rides until the horse is tired. Then she walks. She delivers the letters. She watches the faces of the women who open them. Some of them smile. Some of them cry. Some of them scream. Some of them fall down. Katya watches. She does not say anything. She gets back on the horse. She rides to the next village. The letters are written on cheap paper. They are written in pencil. They are smudged and torn. They say things like, "I am alive," and "I miss you," and "The food is bad," and "I love you." They are the most important things in the world. They are the only proof that a man still exists. Katya delivers them. She delivers thousands of them. She delivers them for 4 years. She never gets a letter herself. Her father died in 1941. Her mother died in the siege of Leningrad. She is alone. She delivers letters for other people. She watches them receive the news. She watches them live or die. She does not cry. She does not have time. She has to deliver the mail. In a laboratory in Moscow, a man named Professor Lebedev works on a problem. The problem is frostbite. The Soviet soldiers are freezing to death. The winter is killing them. The Germans are freezing too. But the Germans have better clothing. The Germans have warmer boots. The Soviet soldiers have felt boots. They are good, but they are not enough. The soldiers' feet get wet. The wet feet freeze. The frozen feet turn black. The black feet have to be cut off. Thousands of soldiers lose their feet. Thousands of soldiers die from gangrene. The Americans send boots. They send millions of boots. They send leather boots and felt boots and rubber boots. They send boots with thick soles and warm linings. They send boots that keep the feet dry. They send boots that save lives. But the boots are not enough. The soldiers need more. They need something to prevent the frostbite in the first place. Professor Lebedev works on a cream. It is a simple thing. It is grease and oil and something else. He mixes it in a beaker. He tests it on rabbits. He tests it on himself. He puts it on his hands. He goes outside. It is 40 below. His hands do not freeze. He smiles. He mixes more. He sends the formula to the factories. The factories make it. They make tons of it. They put it in cans. The cans go to the front. The soldiers smear it on their faces and their hands and their feet. They do not freeze. They live. Professor Lebedev does not know any of these soldiers. He will never meet them. He saves their lives anyway. This is the invisible front. It is not glamorous. It is not heroic. It is not the stuff of medals and parades. It is the stuff of everyday life. It is the stuff of survival. It is the women building engines. It is the men unloading ships. It is the girl delivering mail. It is the professor mixing cream. It is the drivers and the mechanics and the clerks and the chemists. It is everyone who is not a soldier, but without whom the soldier cannot fight. And behind all of them, across the ocean in factories that have never been bombed and cities that have never been shelled, are the Americans. The Americans who build the trucks. The Americans who drill the oil. The Americans who mine the copper. The Americans who refine the rubber. The Americans who pack the food. They do not know the people they are helping. They will never meet them. They will never see the faces of the soldiers who drive their trucks, or the women who wear their boots, or the children who eat their Spam. They do not need to know. They just need to work. They just need to build. They just need to send. And the ships keep sailing. The trains keep rolling. The trucks keep driving. The war keeps going. The invisible front never stops. It cannot stop. If it stops, everything stops. In the spring of 1945, the war ends. The soldiers come home. The factories slow down. The ships stop sailing. The invisible front closes. The women go back to their villages. The men go back to their families. The girl stops delivering mail. The professor goes back to his research. They do not get medals. They do not get parades. They get nothing. They get to live. They get to go home. That is enough. But somewhere, in a village in Siberia, a woman opens a letter. It is from her son. He is alive. He is coming home. She cries. She thanks God. She does not know about the trucks that carried her son. She does not know about the oil that fueled his tanks. She does not know about the boots that kept his feet warm. She does not know about the Spam that filled his stomach. She does not know about any of it. She just knows that her son is alive. She just knows that he is coming home. And that is enough. That is everything. The war ends in May. It ends in Berlin in a bunker with a gunshot and a fire. It ends in the streets with flags and kisses and tears. It ends in the concentration camps with the living walking among the dead. It ends everywhere at once. And when it ends, the world stops. The guns stop firing. The bombs stop falling. The ships stop sailing. The trucks stop rolling. The war is over. But the questions are just beginning. The first question is the simplest. Who won? The answer seems obvious. The Allies won. Germany is defeated. Japan is defeated. The Axis is destroyed. But winning is not the same as surviving. Winning is not the same as recovering. Winning is not the same as being whole. The Soviet Union has won. But the Soviet Union is a corpse. The numbers are too big to understand. 27 million Soviet citizens are dead. 27 million. That is more than the entire population of Canada. That is the equivalent of every man, woman, and child in New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, Phoenix, Philadelphia, San Antonio, San Diego, Dallas, and San Jose combined. All dead. Dead in the snow. Dead in the mud. Dead in the camps. Dead in the ruins. Dead. 70% of Soviet industry is destroyed. 40% of the housing is gone. The railroads are shattered. The bridges are down. The fields are poisoned with mines and corpses. The livestock is slaughtered. The seeds are eaten. The people are starving. The Soviet Union has won the war, but it has lost everything else. In the villages, the women wait for men who will never come. In the cities, the children pick through the rubble for something to burn. In the fields, the old men plow with horses because the tractors are gone. The war is over, but the suffering is not. And in the middle of all this, there is the question of the trucks and the tanks and the planes and the food. There is the question of Lend-Lease. What was it worth? What did it mean? Who paid for it? Who owes whom? The Americans have their own numbers. They have kept careful records. They know exactly how much they sent. They know the tonnage and the value and the destination. They know that they sent $11 billion worth of equipment to the Soviet Union. $11 billion. That is the equivalent of more than $150 billion today. That is more than the entire GDP of most countries. That is a fortune. They sent 400,000 trucks. They sent 14,000 aircraft. They sent 7,000 tanks. They sent 2 million tons of oil. They sent 4 million tons of food. They sent 15 million pairs of boots. They sent everything. They sent it all. And now the war is over. The hose has been used. The fire is out. The neighbor wants his hose back. In Washington, the bureaucrats start adding up the numbers.
They want to know what can be returned. They want to know what must be paid for. They send letters to Moscow. The letters are polite. They are formal. They list the equipment. They ask for an inventory. They ask for a plan. In Moscow, the letters arrive. They are read. They are filed. They are ignored. The Soviet Union is not interested in inventories. The Soviet Union is interested in survival. The trucks are still running. The trucks are carrying food to the starving. The trucks are carrying bricks to rebuild the cities. The trucks are carrying everything. They cannot be returned. They are not just machines. They are the difference between life and death. The Americans do not understand this. They are far away. Their cities are intact. Their factories are humming. Their people are eating. They have not been invaded. They have not been occupied. They have not lost 27 million people. They see Lend-Lease as a transaction. They see it as a loan. They expect to be paid back, or they expect to get their stuff back. Either way, they expect something. The Soviets see it differently. They see Lend-Lease as a necessity. They see it as a matter of survival. They see it as a shared sacrifice. They do not understand why they should pay for the tools that helped defeat the common enemy. They do not understand why they should return the trucks that are keeping their people alive. They are offended, they are insulted, they are angry. The negotiations begin. They are not friendly. They are not productive. They drag on for years. They become a symbol of the growing mistrust between the former allies. The war is over. The peace is just beginning. And the peace is already cold. In 1947, the Americans try a new approach. They offer a deal. The Soviet Union can keep the equipment. They can keep the trucks and the tanks and the planes. They can keep everything. But they have to pay for it. They have to pay a discounted price. They have to pay a fraction of the original cost.
They have to pay something. The offer is $300 million. $300 million. It is a fraction of the original value. It is a bargain. The Americans think it is generous. The Soviets think it is an insult. $300 million is more than the Soviet Union has. $300 million is more than the Soviet Union can afford. The Soviet Union is broke. The Soviet Union is starving. The Soviet Union cannot pay. The negotiations continue. They go nowhere. The Americans lower the offer. They lower it again. They lower it to $170 million. The Soviets do not respond. They are silent. They are waiting. They are hoping that the Americans will forget. The Americans do not forget. They keep asking. They keep waiting. They keep hoping for an answer. In 1951, the Americans give up. They stop asking. They stop waiting. They write off the debt. They consider it a cost of the war. They move on. The Soviet Union never pays. The Soviet Union never apologizes. The Soviet Union never says thank you. The trucks keep running. The tanks keep rusting. The food is long gone. The war is over. The debt is forgotten. But not by everyone. Not by the men who sailed the convoys. Not by the men who died in the ice. Not by the families of the men who never came home. They remember. They remember the cold. They remember the water. They remember the friends who slipped away in the night. They remember what they gave. And they wonder if it was worth it. In a small town in Maine, a man named John Carter sits on his porch. He is old now. He is 72. His hair is white. His hands shake. He looks at the ocean. He has looked at the ocean every day for 30 years. He cannot stop looking at it. The ocean took something from him. It took his friends. It took his youth. It took his peace. He sits on the porch and he watches the waves and he remembers. He remembers PQ-16. He remembers the Carlton going down. He remembers the water.
He remembers the cold. He remembers the men who did not make it into the lifeboat. He remembers their faces. He remembers their names. He remembers them all. He will always remember them. He does not think about the debt. He does not think about the negotiations. He does not think about the money. He thinks about the men. He thinks about the ones who died. He thinks about the ones who lived. He wonders if they are watching the ocean too. He wonders if they remember. In a village in Russia, a woman named Anna sits in her kitchen. She is old too. She is 70. Her back is bent. Her hands are gnarled. She has worked all her life. She drove a truck during the war. She drove a Studebaker. She carried ammunition to the front. She carried wounded men back. She drove through the mud and the snow and the shell fire. She drove until her eyes blurred and her hands froze. She drove and she drove and she drove. She still has the truck. It is in the barn. It does not run anymore. It is rusted. It is broken. It is a relic. But she cannot sell it. She cannot scrap it. It is part of her. It is part of what she did. It is part of who she is. She goes out to the barn sometimes. She sits in the cab. She puts her hands on the steering wheel. She closes her eyes. She remembers. She remembers the faces of the wounded men. She remembers their blood on her hands. She remembers their cries in the night. She remembers the ones who made it. She remembers the ones who did not. She remembers everything. She does not think about the debt. She does not think about the money. She thinks about the truck. She thinks about the men who built it. They were Americans. She never met them. She never thanked them. She does not know their names. She does not know their faces. But she knows that they saved her. She knows that they saved her country. She knows that without them, she would be dead. She sits in the cab and she whispers, "Thank you." She whispers it to the rust and the silence. She whispers it to the ghosts. In 1972, the Americans try again. The Cold War is at its height. But there is a thaw. There is détente. The Americans and the Soviets are talking. They are negotiating. They are trying to find common ground. And someone remembers the debt. The Americans bring it up. They mention the 70-year-old obligation. The Soviets are embarrassed. They are annoyed. They want to move on. But they agree to talk. They negotiate for months. They finally reach a deal. The Soviet Union will pay. They will pay $722 million. They will pay it in installments. They will pay it over 30 years. They will pay it with interest. The deal is signed. The debt is settled. Or so it seems. The payments begin. They are small. They are manageable. The Soviet Union pays for a few years. Then it stops. The economy is bad. The money is needed elsewhere. The payments stop. The Americans complain. The Soviets ignore them. The payments never resume. In 1990, the Soviet Union collapses. It falls apart. It ceases to exist. The new Russia emerges from the ruins. The new Russia is poor. The new Russia is desperate. The new Russia is trying to survive. And the Americans come calling again. They want the money. They want the rest of the payments. They want what they are owed. The Russians are angry. They are insulted. They point out that they are not the Soviet Union. They point out that they did not sign the deal. They point out that they have their own problems. They do not want to pay. They do not think they should pay. But the Americans are persistent. They negotiate. They pressure. They offer deals. Finally, in 1993, the Russians agree. They will pay. They will pay $400 million. They will pay it over time. They will pay it with interest. The deal is signed. The debt is settled again. The Russians make the payments. They make them every year. They make them through the chaos of the 1990s. They make them through the poverty and the crime and the despair. They make them until they are done. In 2006, the final payment is made. The debt is paid. 61 years after the war ended, the last dollar is transferred. The books are closed. The ledger is empty. But the debt is not really about money. It never was. The debt is about memory. The debt is about gratitude. The debt is about recognition. And that debt can never be paid. It cannot be measured in dollars. It cannot be settled with wire transfers. It is a debt of blood. It is a debt of sacrifice. It is a debt that can only be acknowledged. And acknowledgement is hard. In the years after the war, the Soviet Union does not talk about Lend-Lease. The official history barely mentions it. The textbooks say that the Soviet Union won the war on its own. They say that Western aid was insignificant. They say that it was a drop in the ocean. They say that the real heroes were the Soviet workers and the Soviet soldiers. They say that the Americans just profited from the war. They say that Lend-Lease was a business deal, not an act of friendship. This is a lie. The men who fought know it is a lie. The women who drove the trucks know it is a lie. The people who ate the Spam know it is a lie. But they do not say anything. They cannot say anything. It is dangerous to contradict the official story. It is dangerous to tell the truth. So they stay silent. They stay silent for decades. They stay silent until the Soviet Union is gone. Then finally they speak. A veteran named Ivan Kozlov writes his memoirs.
He is old now. He is in his 80s. He writes about the war. He writes about the Sherman tank he drove. He writes about the American food he ate. He writes about the Studebaker trucks that carried his supplies. He writes the truth. He says that without Lend-Lease, the Red Army would have stopped. He says that without Lend-Lease, the war would have lasted years longer. He says that without Lend-Lease, millions more would have died. He publishes his memoirs. They are read. They are debated. They are finally accepted. The truth comes out. Other veterans speak. They tell their stories. They talk about the Matildas and the Valentines. They talk about the Spam and the Tushonka. They talk about the boots and the radios and the copper wire. They talk about the American pilots who flew the Air Cobras. They talk about the British sailors who died on the convoys. They talk about the gratitude they felt and the gratitude they could not express. They talk, and they talk, and they talk. And slowly, the record is corrected. In 2015, the Russian government finally acknowledges the truth. They issue a statement. It says that Lend-Lease was an important factor in the victory. It says that the Western Allies made a significant contribution. It says that the Soviet people are grateful. It is a small statement. It is a long time coming. But it is something. It is acknowledgement. The last convoy sailed in 1945. The last ship docked in Murmansk. The last crate was unloaded. The last can of Spam was opened. The war ended. The peace began. The debt was paid. The truth was told. And now, 70 years later, there is nothing left but memory. The trucks are gone. They rusted away decades ago. The tanks are in museums. The planes are in hangars. The food is long digested. The boots are worn out. The wire is corroded. The oil is burned. Everything is gone. Everything except the stories. The stories remain. They remain in the memories of the old men and women who were there. They remain in the letters and the diaries and the photographs. They remain in the books and the documentaries and the films. They remain because they matter. They remain because the truth matters. They remain because the men who died in the Arctic, and the women who drove through the mud, and the children who ate the Spam deserve to be remembered. Thomas O'Leary is dead. He died in 1985. He was 67 years old. He never talked about the war. He never talked about the San Demetrio. He never talked about the water. He kept it all inside. But on his nightstand, next to his bed, there was a photograph. It was a photograph of a ship. It was the San Demetrio. He looked at it every night before he went to sleep. He looked at it, and he remembered. He remembered the faces of the men who died. He remembered the hands that pulled him into the lifeboat. He remembered the cold. He remembered everything. He never forgot. John Carter is dead. He died in 1998. He was 90 years old. He sat on his porch until the end. He watched the ocean. He watched the waves. He watched the horizon. He never went back to sea. He could not. The water was too close. The water was too real. He stayed on land. He stayed in Maine. He stayed with the memories. On his wall there was a medal. It was a medal from the Soviet Union. They gave it to him in 1944. It was for bravery. It was for surviving. It was for being there. He looked at it every day. He looked at it and he remembered. He remembered the cold. He remembered the fear. He remembered the friends who did not come back. He remembered everything. He never forgot. Anna is dead. She died in 2003. She was 81.
She lived in the same village her whole life. She never left. She never wanted to leave. In her barn, the Studebaker rusted away. The tires went flat, the seats rotted, the paint peeled, but the shape remained. The shape of the truck that saved her. The shape of the truck that carried her through the war. She went to the barn every day until she could not walk anymore. She sat in the cab. She closed her eyes. She remembered. She remembered the mud. She remembered the blood. She remembered the faces of the wounded men. She remembered everything she never forgot. Ivan Kozlov is dead. He died in 2010. He was 94. He wrote his memoirs. He told the truth. He set the record straight. He was honored in his final years. They gave him medals. They gave him parades. They gave him respect. But what he wanted was simple. He wanted people to know. He wanted people to understand. He wanted people to remember. On his grave, there is a photograph. It is a photograph of a Sherman tank. It is the tank he drove. It is the tank that brought him home. Under the photograph, there are words. They are in Russian. They say, "Thank you, Emcha. Thank you, America." He never forgot. And now neither will we. The war is over, the men are gone, the machines are rust, the debt is paid. But the story remains. It remains because it is true. It remains because it matters. It remains because it is the story of how the world came together to defeat a monster. It is the story of how American factories and British sailors and Soviet soldiers and millions of ordinary people did something extraordinary. They saved the world. They saved it together. The convoys sailed, the trucks rolled, the tanks fought, the planes flew, the food fed, the medicine healed, the boots walked, the wire connected, the oil powered. Everything worked. Everything mattered. Everything made a difference. And at the end, when the guns fell silent and the flags went up and the crowds cheered, there was a moment, a brief moment, a moment when the Allies looked at each other and knew what they had done. They had beaten the darkness. They had pushed back the night. They had won. The moment passed. The Cold War came. The mistrust grew. The alliances crumbled. The enemies became friends, and the friends became enemies. The world changed. But the moment was real. The moment happened. The men and women who lived it knew it was real. They carried it with them for the rest of their lives. They carried it in their hearts. They carried it in their memories. They carried it until they died. And now they are gone. All of them. The last veteran died a few years ago. The last witness is silent. The last memory is fading. All that is left is the story of the war, the story of the convoys, the story of the tanks and the trucks and the food, the story of Lend-Lease, the story of the weapon that saved the Allies. It is our story now. It is ours to remember. It is ours to tell. It is ours to pass on. Because if we forget they died for nothing, if we forget the cold and the fear and the sacrifice were wasted, if we forget the darkness wins, so remember. Remember the water. Remember the cold. Remember the men who drowned. Remember the women who drove. Remember the children who starved. Remember the factories that worked. Remember the ships that sailed. Remember the tanks that fought. Remember the food that fed. Remember everything. Remember Thomas O'Leary in the water. Remember John Carter on the life raft. Remember Anna in her truck. Remember Ivan in his Sherman. Remember them all. Remember what they did. Remember what they gave. Remember why they fought. They fought so that we could be here. They fought so that we could remember. They fought so that the story would not end. the story does not end. It continues. It continues in us. It continues in our memories. It continues in our gratitude. It continues in our determination to never let it happen again. The war is over. The debt is paid. The men are gone. But the story remains. And as long as the story remains, they are not forgotten. As long as the story remains, they are still with us. As long as the story remains, the light stays on. And the light is everything.